A few years ago, a 170 on the LSAT put you in the top 3% of everyone who took it. Today, that same 170 only puts you in the top 5%. So now almost twice as many people now hit the exact same number you're studying for, and most of them have no clue it happened. So let me show you what's going on, what it does to the school you can get into, and what you can do about it. Let's start with how the LSAT is supposed to work. The LSAT is built so a 170 means the same thing every single year. That is the whole point. Your score shows how you did, not whether your LSAT was easy or hard that day. And for decades, it held a 170 was a 170. But over the last few years, something broke. Now, here are the real numbers straight from the Law School Admission Council's own data. A few years ago, about 3 out of 100 scored a 170, plus now it's about 5 out of 100, so the group nearly doubled. A 150 used to beat 44 people out of 100. Today, it beats only 38 people out of 100. So your LSAT score doesn't get you as much as it used to. And the timing makes all of this worse because this is one of the most crowded years for law school applicants in 2 decades. The number applying is up about 8.5% over last year, up about 29% over 2 years ago. So put all this together, you've got more people applying, more of them scoring high. That's why this year was especially brutal, and next year may look the same. And of course, people are running to law school because the economy feels shaky, because they're worried about what AI does to other jobs, and because they want work that feels steady and reliable. And none of that is changing by next fall. If anything, things could get worse. Now let's talk about why scores keep climbing. Not everyone's in agreement over what reason matters most, but there are a few contending factors. First of all, there's that more people get extra time on the LSAT now. That's a real approved thing for people who qualify. LSAC gives out extra time to those who get accommodations based on anxiety or ADHD or a whole variety of other factors. They've made it a lot easier to get those accommodations. There's also the cheating on the LSAT in recent years. And there are more people retaking the LSAT. And given that only your best score counts, more people have higher scores. Now, a lot of people also cancel a low score before it even shows up, thanks to the new score preview option. And so the weak scores never even show up. The LSAT also got shorter a couple of years ago, which made it easier to prep for when they removed the logic games section. So all these factors all push in the same direction, pushing scores up. And the people running the LSAT, the Law School Admission Council, of course, their message is simply that interest in law school is strong and people are motivated, which is true, but doesn't tell the whole story because a 170 is not worth a 170 anymore. LSAC doesn't even directly post the old numbers so that you can line up the percentiles. Now, there is one other thing that makes your score matter more now, not less. GPAs from undergrad have been climbing for years also. Just as there's LSAT score inflation, there's also GPA inflation. And so when everybody's got a great GPA, nobody has a great GPA anymore. A 3.8 GPA doesn't set you apart anymore when the T14 all have GPAs roughly in the 3.9 range. So your LSAT score is the one objective metric everybody can compare, regardless of your background, where you went to college, when you went to college, what you majored in. It lets them equalize every applicant from every university. And so even if grades blur together at the very top, the LSAT becomes the cleanest way to tell people apart. Now let's talk about what you can do with all of this. First off, your target LSAT score might be old news. Say, for example, last year you looked up a school and saw a median score of 169. Half their students were above that number, half were below that number. You aimed for a 170 just to feel safe, but a lot of schools' median scores went up a point this year, and so you could hit your 170 and still land below the middle. You did everything right, but your score metric, your target, was no longer relevant. Imagine one person, they start studying when their dream school's median score is a 168. They grind for months, they hit a 169, they feel safe, 1 point ahead. But by the time they actually apply, that school's median score is now a 170 because everyone else's scores went up too. So now their 169 is below the line, and the schools, of course, want to spend their money on people above the line. This also affects your scholarship money, because schools want a median score that's higher for their rankings. So they pay people with high scores to show up. They want to pull up their median scores to pull up their place in the rankings. If higher scores get common, yours is worth less. The same score that earned a big discount a couple of years ago earns less today. And the bar only moves up. More people score high, so schools' median scores increase, which pushes next year applicants to score even higher, and so it feeds itself. So good enough last year is the most expensive idea that you could have in this whole process. You want to look at this year's results. So here's what you want to do. Look up the school you want to attend, find its median score from this year, not an old one, then find where that score ranks today. You're typically going to find that it's higher than you remember and it's harder to beat. Set your goal score a few points above that. If you just match the median, it makes you average. But if you can get above that median, you're going to get scholarship money. Now remember, out of everything in this process, your LSAT score is the one thing you fully control. You can't control how many people apply. You can't control the rules. You can't control your number. But the LSAT is a test that you can learn. See, there was an issue with the audio. Is it better now? And learning the LSAT is simpler than people think. Most people who stall do hundreds of fresh questions and barely look back at the ones they miss. So what you want to do is every single time you get a question wrong, you want to slow down. You want to find out why the right answer is right, why the wrong answer was wrong. Do that on every single miss, and you're going to stop falling for the same traps. You also got to remember that you get more than one shot at the LSAT. Schools only take your highest LSAT score into consideration. So there's no downside to retaking. If you do worse, no big deal. If you do better, congrats. Now you've got a higher score on your record. And the LSAT's offered 8 times a year. Coming up beyond the June LSAT, which was just administered and scores are coming back tomorrow, you've got August, September, October, November. You could take any one of those LSATs. You could take all of those LSATs and apply to law school this fall. And if you want my help, I'm happy to support you. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free LSAT tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Again, the link is below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out with that. Again, that's a free LSAT tutoring lesson and free LSAT cheat sheet open to everyone watching this video now or later. Now, if there are questions in the chat, happy to address any and all of them that I can. Just feel free to drop them in and I'll get to whatever I can. Apologies for the audio issues. Hope those are resolved now. Luckily, Lancelot says, I'm reaching the low to mid 170s finally, but my sub 3.0 GPA will kill my chances. I mean, depends on the law schools that you're applying to. There are 200 different American Bar Association accredited law schools. Each one has their own unique requirements. And so think about which law schools you want to attend. What are their LSAT medians? What are their GPA medians? If you're below on the GPA, you just want to be above on the LSAT to compensate. If you can hit mid 170s on your official LSAT, that'll do a lot to improve your chances. Randy's asking, can a high GPA bury a low LSAT? So we're talking about, for Lucky Lancelot, a high LSAT burying a low GPA. The opposite can also happen, but it's less often. It's less common. The reason being that law schools typically weigh your LSAT score more heavily than your undergraduate GPA. That would make you a splitter applicant if your LSAT was high and your GPA was low. If your GPA is high and your LSAT's low, that makes you a reverse splitter, which is not as good a position to be in because law schools discount your GPA because of rampant grade inflation. And there is also LSAT inflation as well, but the LSAT's more of an apples to apples comparison. The GPA is a little more suspect because people have different majors from different undergraduate institutions. Some law school applicants got their GPA a year or two ago. Some are still in college. Others got their GPA 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so who you were back then may not be who you are today, of course. And if you look at the law school admissions index for any given law school, they're typically weighing your LSAT more heavily than your GPA in virtually every single case. DFW is asking, what's the best strategy for a splitter with a high LSAT, low GPA that is non-traditional 8 years ago? Well, assuming that you actually locked in a high LSAT and you've locked in a low GPA, then I would switch gears and focus on the application essays, the resume, the rec letters. But that's if and only if you've actually locked in an official LSAT score already. If you haven't, lock it in for real. Don't make it hypothetical. Don't leave it on your practice tests. Actually take the LSAT and secure the score for real. Michael's asking, is it worth taking easier classes and sacrificing learning opportunities for a better GPA? Well, that is one of the $1 million questions, right? Do you solely focus on orienting your undergraduate career around getting into law school, or do you want to keep your options open in case law school might not be your chosen path at the end of the day? I can't decide that for you. Only you know whether you definitely want to do law school or not. What I will say is that having a high GPA will probably help no matter what you want to do, but you also don't want to take joke classes that no one's going to respect. So it's a balance. What some folks do is they'll take community college classes over the summer for cheap credits to boost up their GPA for LSAC's calculations. That might be a route to consider. He's asking, what is considered a low GPA? Does that depend on your school? Yes, it does. Depends on the law school that you're targeting. That's what it's all relative to. Braden's asking, are medians changed after every cycle or after every year? How does that work with the ABA 509 reports? Excellent question. And so law schools submit the median LSAT and GPA of their matriculating class each year. They submit those to the American Bar Association, and then in the 509 reports, you'll see the data for the latest entering class. And of course, when that data does come out, I will talk about it and analyze it and post about it as well, not just on my lives, but also on social media like Instagram, for example. And the medians, of course, are a trailing metric, meaning that law schools are always looking to raise up their medians each year. So don't just aim for last year's medians, aim to surpass the medians, given that law schools want to raise up their numbers for the rankings, and the numbers do climb every single year. JZ's asking, worst case scenario, if I still have a 3.7 GPA, what LSAT score do I need? Depends on the law schools that you're targeting. For the top 14 law schools, their GPA medians are roughly in the 3.9 range. Their LSAT medians are in the 170 to 174 range. And so if you're below on the GPA, you want to be above on the LSAT to compensate. August asks, any advice for waiting for scores tomorrow? For those who aren't aware, June LSAT scores are going to be released tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be live at that time. So tomorrow I won't be live at my usual afternoon time. I'll be live 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Pacific time for those of you who are waking up early to get your scores back. And so I'll be live to support folks getting their scores back and help you figure out next steps, whether you're taking the LSAT in August, September, or beyond. I mean, advice for waiting for scores. I mean, the hard work's already done. You just got to open your email and get the score. Sometimes the score posts a little bit earlier than that on the lsac.org website. If you want to log in there before getting it in your email, you can do that. But know that whatever your score ends up being, you can retake. Law schools do not average multiple LSAT scores. They only take into consideration the highest LSAT score on your record. And so June is not the end-all be-all. You can retake, and if you do retake, law schools will not penalize you for that. Retaking is more common than ever before. Let's see. Il Namath is asking, is the credit assembly service worth getting? So there's this LSAC, the Law School Admission Council, has a credential assembly service for sending in your law school applications online. It's not about whether it's worth it or not because it's required. You've got to go through LSAC to apply to law school in the US. There's no way around it. They have a little bit of monopoly on that, and that's part of why they're actually getting sued. There's a pending lawsuit by a law school applicant against LSAC, accusing them of being a monopoly. I've posted about this on my Instagram recently for those who are curious. I've made some videos about it as well. Regardless of whether that's true or not, it's not going to affect anything in the short term. But you've got to go through that. He's asking, do law schools look at the degree you have relative to your GPA? I mean, yes, it's useful context. So for example, if you majored in engineering, your undergraduate GPA is probably going to be lower than if you majored in, say, English or poli-sci or sociology. At the same time, though, the numbers are the numbers. Your GPA, no matter what you majored in, is what the law school has to submit to the American Bar Association, which in turn is where US News pulls the data from for inclusion in the rankings. So to the commenter earlier who was saying, should I just take easier classes? The answer is maybe you want to take an easier major to get a higher GPA. That's assuming that law school is your sole focus. There are reasons to major in harder things if you're not sure whether law school is right for you, though, so tread carefully there. Nickname's asking, how would top 10s view long work experience in software, a near perfect LSAT score, and a 3.0 GPA? Well, I will say this. The longer you've been out of undergrad, the less your undergraduate GPA matters, and the more your LSAT and your work experience matter because they are the more recent metrics that law schools have to evaluate you. The LSAT's a more recent metric. The work experience is a more recent way they can evaluate you. The 3.0 GPA from several years ago is not reflective necessarily of who you are today, so they'll give it a little bit less focus as context. Jeez is asking, do law schools look at work experience of paralegals? Yes, they do, and they like it, honestly. They like to see that you have real-world exposure to the practice of law as it's actually done, not the media portrayals of law, like in Suits, for example, or Better Call Saul. So it's good to have if you have it. Don't over-index on it, though. Don't go get a job as a paralegal just for law school admissions purposes. That time is better spent focusing on the LSAT. He's asking, how much time do you recommend carving out for September or October LSAT prep? I mean, the more the better, right? It's like if you're training for the Olympics, you don't ask how much should I train, you just give it your all because you want a top result, right? So put in the time that you can. You've got roughly 2.5 months till September, 3.5 months till October. That's really plenty of time to make literally anything happen. Just give it your all. We don't want you to burn out, of course. And so one thing we do at LSAT Unplugged is we create for you a personalized study plan, laying out exactly what to do every single day from now till your test. That covers when to drill LSAT questions by type, when to do timed sections, when to take full-length practice tests as test day approaches. We map it out literally down to the day, considering weekdays, weekends, holidays, vacations. We divide LSAT prep into 3 major phases: accuracy, pacing, and endurance. Accuracy is drilling questions by type to better understand the proper perspective from which to view each section and each question type. Pacing is doing individual questions to work on your time allocation, your time management, and then endurance is doing full-length timed practice tests to build up your endurance. If you don't have a structured study plan, we can help you build one. Happy to talk it through with you. You can book a free LSAT tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. I see August is asking, any thoughts on giving up the idea of the T14, the top 14 law schools? A strong regional school with a scholarship seems to be a better return on investment for a solid job. This makes me less motivated to get a 170 plus. Well, I agree and I disagree with what you said. I mean, on the one hand, I agree that for a lot of folks, going to a lower ranked law school with more scholarship money is a better move than going to a higher ranked law school with less scholarship money. The problem, though, with your approach here is that if you get a lower LSAT score, you might not get that scholarship at the lower ranked school. And so either way, whether you want to go for a prestigious top ranked school or you want to go to a lower ranked school with more scholarships, the path forward is still the same. Get the highest possible LSAT score. The strong regional schools will only give you the scholarship money if you have strong numbers. Strong numbers being your LSAT score and your GPA. And the thing is that for most folks, by the time they apply to law school, their GPA from undergrad is pretty much a done deal. They're finishing up undergrad or they already finished undergrad. And so the GPA is no longer something that you can impact. On the other hand, though, your LSAT score, you still have room to improve significantly. So either way, a higher LSAT score is going to get you better outcomes. And that's why folks invest so much into getting that higher LSAT score. I see Jesus asking, how many full practice tests do you recommend to take at least before the exam in November? Well, in general, regardless of when you're taking the LSAT, I recommend taking at least 10 full-length timed practice tests before the big day, so that test day itself will be like just another run-through, and you've done it all before. Let's see, Sandy's asking about taking the LSAT in August. If you're an August LSAT taker, you might want to take 2 exams a week if you've got the space in your schedule. Otherwise, just 1 exam a week plus detailed review is sufficient. If you're taking the LSAT in November, you've got more time to get more exams under your belt. I don't want you to burn out, of course. That's why we craft personal study plans for our students to help you make the most of your time without going too far with it. But regardless, 1 exam a week is a good general rule of thumb to get all those simulations under your belt. And you should also know, by the way, that the LSAT is changing. Starting in August, it's back to in-person for nearly everybody with rare exceptions. So you'll be taking it in person at a Prometric testing center. LSAC, the Law School Admission Council, has also changed the user interface, starting with the August LSAT, and you can play with that new format, the new software, the new interface inside the LSAC Law Hub platform. LTN's asking, got a 392 at Georgetown, a 175 plus LSAT based on a 170 diagnostic. So I guess you're assuming your score is going to go up. Chances at HYS, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, especially if GPA is a 395. So I guess there's a couple of baked in assumptions here. One is that your LSAT is going to be above a 175. The second assumption is that you're going to raise up your GPA to 395 or higher. Assuming those two things are true, I would assume you've got pretty good chances, assuming no red flags anywhere else. The question, though, becomes, can we actually lock in the 175 plus LSAT and lock in the 395 GPA? I mean, you can look at the medians yourself, and you'll see that those hypothetical numbers are extremely strong, but there's still work to be done to get those numbers up. I'm guessing you're still an undergrad. You've got to raise up your GPA. You've also got to raise up your LSAT, and getting it from a 170 to a 175 is easier said than done. The typical student drops at least a couple of points from their practice test to the actual. That could, in some cases, be due to a failure to properly simulate test day conditions. The upcoming LSAT format changes, both going back to in-person and the software changing, are, of course, two variables that you want to work on. There's also nerves and anxiety as well. And so you want to have a buffer in place. You want to be scoring closer to 180 if you want to be guaranteed or virtually guaranteed. There are no real guarantees, of course, to get a 176 on your actual LSAT on test day. So don't assume it's a done deal yet. Keep putting in the work. Once you've locked in the score officially, then of course you can rest and take it easy a little bit and switch gears to the other application components, like the application essays, the resume, the letters of rec, and all that good stuff. I see you're saying you got a 176 on practice tests. Congrats, that's awesome, of course, but we got to keep working and pushing that up even higher and get more consistency there too. Wild is asking, what do you recommend to start studying with for the November LSAT? So you want to have the official LSAT practice tests. The best place to get those is the LSAC Law Hub Advantage platform. Of course, the practice tests don't come with explanations, and there's nobody that you could talk to or get feedback from on what you're getting wrong and why you're getting it wrong. And so if you want some help, you can book a free LSAT tutoring lesson with me. The link's below the video, pinned in the chat in my bio. You can also grab the free LSAT cheat sheet in the bio below the video as well. For those just joining, I do these lives every single weekday, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're watching this. Normally, they're at this time, but tomorrow I'm doing it in the morning for the June LSAT score release. For those who aren't aware, June LSAT scores are coming out at 9 a.m. Eastern time, so I'll be live at that time to support everybody getting their scores back for the June takers, and also helping everybody figure out their next steps for the August, September LSATs and beyond coming up this fall. Whether you're retaking or not, we'll be up bright and early to help you figure out your next steps. Glass is asking, how early should I start practicing the LSAT? I'm currently a sophomore in college. So are you a rising sophomore, starting sophomore year this fall? If so, you're a bit early, of course. Your LSAT score is good for 5 years, so hypothetically you could take the LSAT and go directly to law school after undergrad, but you don't need to start this early. You could instead just say, you know what, I'm going to focus on maintaining a good undergraduate GPA, exploring whether law school is really right for me, then circle back to it in a year or so. The LSAT and law school aren't going anywhere, and maintaining a good GPA will help you out no matter what you want to do. M's asking, I'm an Ivy League grad, 2-year gap before law school, 3.7 GPA. What should I aim for on the LSAT? And is October too late to submit applications? So I guess my question would be first, what kind of law school do you want to go to? If you went to an Ivy League undergrad, I know a lot of folks who went to Ivy League undergrads want to go to top law schools as well. A 3.7 GPA is good, hypothetically speaking, but relatively it's below the medians for the T14, the top 14 law schools. And so you might want to have a 175 plus LSAT to compensate for a GPA that, while good, is still below the T14 medians. Now, as for whether October is too late, October is not too late to submit applications. The cycle has extended later and later over time so that you are actually totally fine submitting applications in October or November. Anytime this calendar year is totally fine. And it's better to give yourself a bit more time to get a higher LSAT score than to apply in, say, August or September with a relatively lower LSAT score. In other words, it's worth waiting to get that score up. And yes, in line with LTN's plan, doing another year or so of prep to push as high as possible. Yeah, I mean, if you need the time to get your score up, it's worth delaying applications a cycle. Your LSAT score could be worth 6 figures in scholarship money, so there's no reason to rush it. You want to take the time and do it right. Sandy's asking, what's your advice for August LSAT takers? You've got about a month and a half, and so at this point, I would switch gears from doing foundational work like reading textbooks and watching course lesson videos. I would also switch away from drilling LSAT questions by type and give more of a focus on doing full-length timed practice tests, because test day is not a drill. It is not enough to get the LSAT questions right. You got to get them right under test day conditions, considering pacing and time management and endurance. A lot of folks will make the mistake of doing nothing but drilling LSAT questions by type, or they'll just get into this information gathering mode where they will read a lot of textbooks cover to cover, even those 500-page LSAT prep phone books, or they'll drill questions on their phone, but they never actually sit down for 2.5 hours and do a full practice test. Then they take it officially and wonder why their scores are so much lower on the official exam. But the thing is that doing 100 questions as drills does not make for a full practice test. You got to work on the endurance factor, which is why I always recommend carving out time for doing at least one full timed practice test every single week once you've gotten the lay of the land. Once you are reasonably proficient and you understand the different questions, the different question types in logical reasoning. For example, you've got strength and weaken, flaw, parallel, resolve, and so on. There's also reading comp to work on. But you could spend a year just reading textbooks about all of this theoretically. The real work is in the application, because there's also pacing and time management, doing individual timed 35-minute sections, knowing when to flag questions, when to skip them, when to come back to them later. And then, of course, the endurance, the stamina of doing 4 sections back to back for 2.5 hours. You can't take 4 separate sections individually on 4 consecutive days, add it up and call it a practice test. You want to get to the place where your 4th section performance is just as good as section number 1 because you're not tired. Easier said than done, of course, but that's the work. To Rachel's questions here, advice for working through LSAT prep textbooks versus taking practice tests and reviewing. I mean, every type of prep has its place. Textbooks are important to learn the basics in the early phases, but it's also more efficient to just watch course lesson videos that boil it down more simply like we do. But then once you've done that, then you can switch gears to take a full practice test and review your mistakes as well. But textbooks alone, not enough. Course lesson videos, not enough. You've got to take the practice test, review in depth, and get real feedback on what you're getting wrong and why you're getting it wrong. Otherwise, you're just going to keep making the same mistakes again. Drift is asking, is a 3.8 GPA still competitive for a top 7 school, even if it's below the median? Well, by definition, if your number is below the median, then no, it is not competitive. Just telling it to you straight here. I mean, the numbers don't lie. If you want to get into a top law school, you want your numbers to be at or ideally above the median. And if your GPA is below the median, then you're going to need to have your LSAT score above the median to be competitive. Of course, there are always exceptions here and there occasionally, but for the most part, that's the case. Or if there's somebody with impressive unicorn softs, then sure, maybe they could be the exception to the rule. But in the vast majority of cases, you want to have a higher LSAT to offset a lower GPA, if that's the case, or vice versa if you're a reverse splitter. But if you want to be competitive, just to tell you straight, you're going to want to get your LSAT score up to compensate. The good news, though, is that You have plenty of time to retake the LSAT. It's offered 8 times a year, and you've still got 4 more LSATs coming up this calendar year in August, September, October, and November. If you want to talk through what your LSAT study plan could look like to get your score up for this cycle, you can book the free tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com. Happy to help you out and figure out your next plan of attack. You can also grab the free LSAT cheat sheet linked below the video at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Links below. I'll be back tomorrow, bright and early, 9 a.m. Eastern Time for the June LSAT score release. I'll see you all then. In the meantime, all the best. Take care.